Only Oryx could make a home out of this rotted filth.
Gar waxes. The magic of wilds and beasts grows stronger. Had I divined the power earlier, perhaps I would not have found the mire grown so deep.
It is more than that. Commander, there is the stench of death about this place. Not just from the Oryx.
Death comes for everyone. Eventually. Except us.
This way.
We are reforged anew. Again and again. Until all feeling of pain and caring is lost.
Hey guys, I'm Janet on occasion, and today we're taking a look at Realms of Ruin, the new Warhammer Age of Sigmar game. I'm talking over someone, aren't I?
I'll keep a keen eye.
Yes, keep a very keen eye. So anyway, this I played remotely a few weeks ago, so I'm having to sort of retrace my steps, take my mind back to when I played this. So a few things have changed since the previous build. If you guys watched my gameplay from the other demo I was able to play a month ago, 6 weeks ago, I'm not sure, some time ago. You might notice some differences, but we'll get to those later on. So first off, yep, this is the campaign. This is really fun that we get to actually show off the campaign now. I played level 2 and 3, which I'll be showing off to you today. This is level 2. There's a dead Drake, very sad. Very sad indeed. There's a bunch of orc tribes here. You can see these are gut rippers. The same rock, paper, scissors thing still applies. So shields are good against archers, and then fighters are good against shields, and archers good against fighters. There's a, you can see them. I can't remember the designations they give, but it's very intuitive, the rock, paper, scissors. However, you'll notice there are some star icons above our characters. Some characters and units basically are outliers that sort of sit outside of the general rock, paper, scissors. They all have their own different abilities. As you can see, the selected units are shown at the bottom of the screen, and you can tab through them. You control all of them when they're all selected, but the actions that you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, the retreat and the chain lightning, that's because I have my Wizard of Azir selected at the moment. He's my sort of lightning boy.
Stupid storm gits! You think you got the grit to march here? Come and get some! End up like your Dracoth!
Oryx filth. Let's get to it.
Aiden, hold! With no Vanguard hunters watching our flank, we will meet our reforging if this muster point falls. Gather the battalions. I'll secure the path here.
You're yours to command.
Amazing. So, this place is going to get cordoned off. This is our sort of home base now that we can build from, which is really fun. That there is some, there is recruitment and stuff in this game, though not a huge amount of base building, which I prefer. Honestly, I kind of prefer to have the focus on the objectives and the movement and trying to outthink your opponent and that kind of stuff. I find the resource management in these games, it's just a bit, I find it a bit tiring. I prefer to focus on one thing at a time. I'm old, whatever, but it does keep very dynamic gameplay. So you can see it's giving me some, information here, some tutorialization as how to summon new units. You can see there is a population cap at the top of the screen, which we'll see in a second. I'm just going through slowly so everyone can absorb the information. At least that was my thinking at the time. So new units will take time to summon, but they'll arrive at the command post. So you can see the population cap at the top is 4 out of 8 at the moment. As you upgrade your muster point, you will actually put up the capacity. But we can't upgrade the muster point because this is only level 2, and so we still only have access to the most basic things. So here you can see a couple of things are capped out. If they die, you can re-recruit them. So, you know, if a character dies, they're not dead. Which is, you know, kind of handy. I don't think I lose any of them, though, during this this battle, so we can't test that hypothesis entirely, but, you know, that's what I intuited from that recruitment screen. However, I can still get more vanguards and more, whatever the ones with the shields are called. Sorry, I'm rubbish with Age of Sigmar units. When they decided to make everything have incredibly legally distinct, trademarkable names, they basically just made it really confusing and unintuitive. You know, they could have called them, you know, spearmen with shields, but they don't do that. No, or they have swords. Hammers. They could have called them hammerers because they have hammers, but they don't. They call them something. Call them something or other. Anyway, I prefer things to be intuitive. So, as you can see, we are battling through those guys. So one thing that's a bit different, which I don't quite understand why, but I couldn't find attack move. I couldn't find the attack move button. And when you got ranged units, that's very, very difficult. Because yes, if you bump into an enemy, you kind of get locked into combat with them, though not as much as you did in previous builds. They seem to have eased up on that. So the design intent remains the same, but the effect is different. So basically what happens now is you can shimmy away from enemies a bit, but if you're just in a one-on-one battle, you will never be able to shimmy away from them, so you'll have to dedicate yourself to the full retreat option which exists, which runs people right back to your muster point. It gives them a huge speed bonus and defense bonus. They just charge straight towards your muster point where they regroup. But they do heal automatically now. You don't have to click a heal button that costs you money. They'll just heal over time. Because I guess they figured it's already costly enough to have to spend resources in order to heal your guys. So I think that's good. So they just sort of, you know, they go back. They're out of the fight for a while. They'll recoup, and you can send them out again. But yeah, one-on-one fights you'll tend to get locked into, which I really like. But they've made sure that if you have a couple of your units brush up against the enemy, they won't both be stuck in that fight forever. You can sort of edge one away and run off, which it means that if you are sort of outnumbering enemies, think of it like Dungeons and Dragons or something. You know, like you might evoke an attack of opportunity. You can't just freely run out of combat, right? But in this case, you can kind of run out of combat if you have someone backing you up. You know, one unit can pin the enemy while the other one disengages, which feels more intuitive, and I think that's quite good. So it's not quite as, you're not quite as punished for just sort of rubbing against an enemy unit and then being locked into that fight forever. Even though I do like that intent, but I think this one gives you the same effect, but numbers can still give you the flexibility that you would expect. So I think they found a good middle ground. One thing that is interesting though, the ranged units have to deploy. You actually have to give them a direction, and they'll kneel and point in that direction. They can't just shoot freely, which I think is a change from previous. I'm not sure why they decided to do that. I think they wanted to emphasize flanking a bit more, make it so, you know, if they're guarding a point and you're sort of rushing past, you can just sort of get out of the way without them shooting at you. But if you've obviously got some backup, you know, for the ranged units, then they have the time to then point and shoot at the target that's now locked into a fight. So they feel like they're more of a supporting role rather than them able just to blast the enemies, you know, sort of just on the fly. You know, you can't just sort of put them anywhere and expect them to get a bunch of kills. Which is kind of nice. I like it. There's a bit more thought involved. Which again is nice because obviously if you don't have all the emphasis on the resource management, you want more emphasis on managing your units and strategically maneuvering them. So again, I think that's a change for the better, broadly speaking. So here we're going to save some prisoners from a very fancy cage here. Very fancy cage indeed. As you can see, I'm looking at our upgrades. So our upgrades, we spend, oh god, there's, what is it, muster points and realm stone, I think it is, the two resources in the top left. I think it's realm stone, something like that. But anyway, that's used for sort of upgrades and abilities, while the muster points are used for, well, mustering forces, or the command points, something like that.
The realm stone seam. By harnessing its power, I think I might have a spell that can destroy it. Perhaps we might surprise the Oryx.
So one big problem, which is very dynamic and exciting, but the cutscenes stop you being able to control anything, but it doesn't pause the game. So I couldn't get... So basically, I commanded my units to move towards those things, and when I saw them, I would have liked to have changed my mind and run away from the you know, horror, so I could get this nice flank going. But they were stuck. They were just locked into that fight. So that was purely a timing thing on my part, but it was very frustrating seeing my guys just get shot at while the wizard's going, don't you know we can blast through there to surprise the enemies before we attack them, because it would be so dangerous to go the other way, as, you know, my men are just getting shot because they walked into the danger that he's chatting about and I can't do anything about it. It's like, you're right, wizard, isn't hindsight great? You're so clever. Anyway, moving on. So yeah, it's a pretty typical sort of single-player, you know, experience with the sort of just making your way through a map, you know, dealing with the enemy base, random other objectives popping up, little story beats thrown out between. But it does still have the general sort of strategic elements you'd expect from sort of, you know, multiplayer and things in this game. It's just, I'd say it lets you go at your own pace, but in a way it kind of doesn't. The enemy's actually fairly aggressive. They do tend to throw things at you a little bit piecemeal, but they keep the pressure on. Just throughout the whole thing, they just constantly spawn new units out of various sort of holes in the wall, basically. They just sort of come in from outside the map at various points to try and sort of stress you out, try and grab capture points back, which is good and bad. I have mixed feelings about it. I think there needs to be maybe a cooldown on it, or something, or they need to do it in waves, or something. But what I find tends to happen is, throughout this, is as I move forwards, because there's a population cap that doesn't go up through capturing objectives at all, you end up having to dedicate more of your forces to defending points. And so you end up with fewer units for the final assault. Because it's very easy to get to that population cap. So it does feel very strange having a strategy game, sort of a fairly traditional style, you know, single-player strategy campaign, where the final assault on the enemy's base is always when you have the least units, except maybe the first point you captured. But broadly speaking, you have far fewer than you do sort of in the middle of the level, because so many of the units are dedicated to defending previous objectives that are still getting attacked in a fairly sort of arbitrary manner. So it feels a bit strange. It's sort of like this weird de-escalation, where normally you'd be like, haha, now I have 50 mammoth tanks, because I'm playing Red Alert. You know, Command & Conquer Red Alert in my head for some reason. But anyway, yeah, I've got 50 mammoth tanks. They're gonna get it, but now you're just like, haha, I have 50 tanks, and 2 of them are attacking the enemy. It feels a bit odd. The pacing's a bit strange there, so I'd like to see some degree of like escalation, or in the campaign, certainly, taking certain points I think should put up the level cap to an extent. I think something to sort of help you defend those places, or of course ways to destroy the places where they can reinforce. We did just get sort of demonstrated earlier the fact that you could use your lightning to blast down a wall. Well, why couldn't you just like blast down the gates and destroy entrances that the enemies are coming in? Something that feels like you're proactively stopping the enemy coming at you, whereas now you can't stop them. You just have to sort of rush to complete all the objectives, knowing that there's an infinite supply of orcs they're going to be pouring in. And of course, the further away you get from your home base, the more fights you've been in, the less health all your units are going to have, like mine right now. And when do you send them back to go get heals, you know? Because you do want to get them healed up before attacking sort of the main assault. Look at this, look. That very far part of the map got attacked. And so I'm being stressed right at the back. So there's not a sense of, oh, well, I took over this point, but I've taken the next point now. So that previous one should be safe. Because obviously they're going to go through the, you know, they're going to attack at the front line, right? Which I guess it is thematic that these are, you know, supposed to be very sneaky gits. So it makes sense that they would try and probe different areas and things. But they also like a fight. I find these orcs are a bit strange compared to their fantasy bunch. Whereas, yeah, they like to fight, but they're also quite sneaky. It's, yeah, a bit of an odd one. Act more like goblins. But it does make for a strange sort of pacing for a strategy game, where, yeah, it keeps you on your toes, which I like, but there doesn't seem to be any way to secure yourself from that. I think that it would be nice if there were ways to, that, you know, it was a cost that you had to pay in order to be prepared, that wasn't just, I have fewer troops for the final objectives. You know, I have my smallest battle at the end, rather than my largest battle. So there's some balancing there that I think needs to happen. So I appreciate being stressed in various places around the map. But especially for a level like this, that is like level 2, I don't think they need to do that as much. I think there should be a way to sort of get rid of that. Because in later maps, they're not going to be as linear. It's not just going to be a big line through a map, right? I mean, yes, there's a couple of loop-de-loops, but the map is very linear. And so you would expect it to behave linearly, where you're on one side, the orcs are on the other, and you push forward. You learn to use your different abilities in order to overcome the massive enemies in front of you. I feel like that should be the flow of this fight. However, I don't think that that is a negative thing to say at this point, because the game is still a ways off, and it's coming out in November. And from the previous demo that I played, the previous sort of, you know, hands-on remote thingy, like this demo, the last one I played, there was a fair bit of feedback that got given, and they seem to have acted on all of it. There's a lot of changes here, like they're getting locked into combat. They've changed that a bit. Some people seem to have you know, some gripes around that, so they made it a little bit more flexible, but they get the spirit of the design. You know, you're still kind of locked into combat, but technically not entirely. So I like that. There is some flexibility there, but the spirit has been upheld, that sort of design. So I think that's nice. It's less frustrating for most. It's like, yeah, if you're stuck in combat, they're going to keep hitting you. You know, retreat if you need to. I think that's good. But also, they've changed the control scheme completely. It used to be WASD was different actions. You know, your different abilities. Like A was attack move, I believe. That's why I couldn't find it when I started again, because they've actually changed it to WASD to move the camera, and they've, you know, changed the keybinds for the other abilities, for the surrounding keys, which I think is rather nice that they've taken that on board. But also a huge thing that they've done is charge and retreat are no longer the same button. You might think, like, well, what? They were the same. They were the same. They were the same. If you were out of combat, you could charge, and if you were in combat, you could retreat. But it was the same button. So when I was first playing that first demo, if any of you guys watched that gameplay, you'll know that I complained about that. I kept retreating by accident partly because of the like network lag, because, you know, I was playing remotely, so the input lag. So I'd be trying to charge, but by the time it would register the button press, I was already in combat. So my guy would retreat, which was awful. I think they've also made it you have to hold down the retreat button to retreat, which was another suggestion I made. Like, all of these were suggestions that they've taken on board with regards to, you know, controlling the units, charging, retreating. Also, only certain units have charge now. It seemed to be that all units had charge before, and they'd all get a bonus. Now it seems to be more substantial, but for fewer units. It's the ones that make sense. It's your heroes and things. It's the guys who you would sort of expect. I don't know if there's a Age of Sigmar equivalent, but it's something like what's it called? Heroic. There's a 40k thing. There's a 40k rule. Lets your heroes like run into combat if they're nearby. It's like heroic charge or something. But it feels more like that, where you can just suddenly like get your heroes into combat if somebody is attacked. They can charge in all heroically, which is very fun. So I like it. I think the changes are really good. It's much easier to control in that regard, though I still have no idea where attack move is as a control. And normally it wouldn't matter, because if enemies rub up against each other, you're locked into combat, right? So it just automatically starts combat. That's great, except ranged weapons need to deploy, and you really want them to be able to just see there's an enemy in range and then deploy and start shooting. You know, you want the option to give them that. Oh, and here's a charge, see? Here we go in. Huzzah! And you can see it does huge damage, very powerful. It does have a cooldown, it does have quite a cooldown, but it also costs a bunch. You can see it actually, like, yeah, for that unit to charge, okay, I keep moving through them. Sorry, this isn't live. I mean, I don't get to I don't get to hover over things I'm trying to tell you. But yeah, the bottom left, you can see each thing has a cost. It actually costs a bit to retreat as well. However, retreating is way cheaper than recruiting a whole new unit, so, you know, that's usually the best option, certainly for very expensive units. But yeah, I really like the sort of ability ecosystem. It's kind of nice, especially now, because if you are managing your units very well, and you're not taking a lot of losses, you're not spending a load of resources on recruitment, so you do usually have spare to keep your guys going, you know, to be able to sort of really just get in, use a bunch of big abilities and push the advantage, which is really, really nice. So you have to stay on your toes to make sure the enemy doesn't do that to you and, you know, wipe your guys out quickly. But, you know, if you really keep on top of your units, you can do some good management. I mean, look at there, I'm hitting lightning and all sorts. See, I'm throwing chain lightnings out there, doing some scary things, and it's really, really pushing that advantage. However, it was around here that I really lost my patience for the weird, just enemies getting spat out of the wall constantly thing. Because having to defend that back line so much was a bit, you know, a bit annoying that I had to dedicate units so far back. Although it did keep my freshly retreated units, you know, did give them something to do nice and early. But you'll notice that the orcs I'm fighting now is a huge slog to get through these, because they just won't stop coming. And that's because it seems that they spawn every time you kill a unit. They just spawn out of that hole again. So I seem to be fighting just infinite ones and just slowly pushing forwards. It's really quite frustrating. And you can see that unit brushed up against mine a little bit, even though he was going for my back line. It seemed like he was going for the wizard, but my unit brushed up against him. Really just bad pathfinding from the enemy to let themselves get caught out like that. You know, our guys were completely static, but it locks them into combat.
We are yours to command.
Alright boys, how are you all doing? Yeah, they seem to be doing well. But yeah, attacking this route, yes, there's enemy reinforcements there, but there's also one of those, whatever they're called, beast skewers there, pointing down, you know, the other route. So this route is the safer one, sort of. I think just taking the damage from the skewer and just running straight past might have actually been wiser. But this does get me into their base. But yeah, every time I kill one of these units, another one spawns. You know, really I should just leave one unit there and run, which is what I do eventually. But I was kind of testing it to be like, really? Are they really just going to keep sending them out? And here I'm trying to see, can you destroy this? Is there a way to destroy this? And there isn't. But here's another one. See, they don't take long. They don't take long. So yeah, this is where something, you know, some idea of like, oh, we can stop this from happening would be nice, so you can attack the enemy sort of base with full strength. Because it being a single player experience, they can just fill the enemy bases with defenses and just set the AI to just defend that area. You know, it's not like they're going to behave sort of like they would in a skirmish game, where they're just going to send stuff at you if it's available. No, you can have them just remain still and wait for us to show up before they engage, right? There's no harm in that, so it seems odd that they don't just make that last battle more difficult, you know, make the enemy's base more defended by units that aren't going to push out. And look, there we go, another one! Another one's just come out again, it's crazy. They just won't stop. Yeah, it's really, really quite silly. But, yeah, more enemies running in. So I think these guys that we're seeing, I'm pretty sure they are spawning in from the south, because there's actually one little area that I missed where there was some more of our guys in a cage below that second capture point that we got. In that little tiny loop-de-loop, the little donut down the bottom. But yeah, there is actually some prisoners there. There's a little entrance that I think is spitting the enemies out there. But you can see there's a lot of wear and tear on my units now. They are starting to take a fair bit of damage. So the guy that ran off, right, the guy who had the banner, the guy who just sort of went, oh, I'll go get help, and just, you know, ran away. Coward. He does go get help, it's fine. But yeah, he's got a healing thing. That banner, he smashes it to the ground and it heals everyone in an area, which is really, really powerful. And it really helps on these prolonged fights. But without him, this was such a slog. So, get rid of them soon. Any minute now. Good. And now let's... so I try and investigate that statue. That's nothing, unfortunately. That's just there to look pretty. But the enemy's base, their last capture point, is up in the north, so we need to go capture that. And you also notice the objectives in the top right. So there's the main objective, capture the arcane conduits, but also locate missing scouts, I believe is an optional secondary objective. I don't think you actually need to do that to trigger the victory, but obviously it's nice to save more scouts, because that does actually let you get above your population limit, which is handy.
Turn them to crow food.
Oh, also, you can build upgrades on the capture points. Not on... there's arcane conduits, which are, you know, points you can capture. Then there's also, like, objective markers of various type that you can't build on, that tend to be the sort of the main objectives if you're playing, like, a skirmish game in multiplayer or something. They're the things that get you the points. They're the ones with more sort of, like, I guess, circumstantial effects, which we will soon see in the next level. We encounter some of those as well as the arcane conduits. But the arcane conduits you can build on top of. You can build defences on them, or you can do the ones that give us the realm stone, which is the ones I've been building. But there's a bunch of upgrades. There's one that gives big line of sight, one that gives realm stone resource, one that will shoot enemies, and one that heals. That's right, there's also a healing one. But we're on level 2, so we can only build the one type of tower. So there's a lot of things that this level has been a bit frustrating because it's only level 2. We don't have access to a lot of things that would sort of overcome these gripes, which is why, particularly with this level, I think it makes sense that the enemy would only attack your front line, and as you moved forwards, it would just turn off some of the, you know, the areas. Like the fact that we have that bottom point, they should disable the entrance that the orcs are using down by there, and it should only have them forward, so that way you're moving in one direction as you sort of learn to play. I think that would make a lot more sense. You know, for this level anyway. Because it's level 2. I mean, it's level 2. They don't need to make us juggle so much. But broadly, you know, broadly speaking, it was exciting to play. It was exciting. You know, a lot of running around. A lot of reacting to things, which is pretty good.
The enemy attempt to wrest power from us.
Yep, they're back on that first point again. So we actually need to get 3 arcane. We need to capture all 3 of the arcane conduits.
Sigmar's Aegis.
Okay, our command post is, our muster point rather, is blasting them. And you can see we are slowly taking this over. You can see that line is withdrawing. I don't entirely know how that works. I find that that weird border, it's not a great measure of how captured a point is. I don't really understand why that influence spreads, because I'm not sure that influence does anything except be present. So I'm a bit baffled by that. I don't really know the point of that moving. Because, like, I don't know, maybe later on we will get some structures that we can put up, and they have to be within those borders. I don't know. But yeah, the weird way that the objectives are circled, it doesn't really help you gauge how captured something is, or, you know, or not. It's kind of hard to tell.
The maggots think they're just gonna march on through. Take all the land back and stab them right proper, boys.
Well, that wizard's back.
Gleaming beard. You certainly have your hands full, Sigrun.
Aiden, I did not expect you back so soon.
I heard the Auric war cries and brought what troops I could muster.
Thank Azir that you did. Our Vanguard hunters should make short work of these Aurics.
I brought help. I found these 4 guys. Thanks. Anyway, so a bit of a fight down here. You can see someone's really injured, some retreating in. As retreating, basically all of them here. But yeah, we definitely got very hurt. Wasn't expecting a huge chunk of enemies to show up again. Also, notice how they turned out away from that final objective that we captured. So again, it's like, yeah, being attacked in the back line. It seems to go out of its way to keep you on your toes, which again, partly good, partly bad. It feels a bit strange. I'd almost like them turning up at the sort of the northern part of this map, where you just take like enough to chase us off, and then we have to retreat. They'll start trying to take back, and you push through the map again. You know, against like an enemy spellcaster this time, something like that. But them showing up in the middle of the map, it just means that you, I don't know, it feels a bit. I mean, I guess it's fine. But yeah, it's just a lot of the time it feels like you can't prepare for anything. Especially when you can't build. buildings, I think it's especially annoying, because it really is just going, oh well, your units aren't going to be there, so we'll just spawn a bunch there, and that'll make it difficult. It's like, well, yeah, it will, but that doesn't leave the player much agency to sort of go, oh, okay, I want to prepare for everything. You're not really preparing for anything, you're reacting to everything. So I think there are issues there with insistence on throwing stuff like in the middle of the map like every time, because that is a very common thread
We've got orders to move.
with this title. So it's there's things they can change. I think just the flow of a map, but I do very much enjoy the gameplay and the fact that you're constantly having to remain engaged because you are having to react to everything. It does lead to something very engaging. So I don't know. I'm mixed on it yet. I think that it needs some tweaks maybe, but I think again, just like the way engagement worked, where it was very rigid and then they tweaked it and now it's a bit more flexible and they got the best of both worlds there. I think they could do the same with how they're spawning in enemies. Give some more agency to the player to be able to prepare for those things without having to just leave most of their units at home for the sort of the final attack, you know.
I gotta come out the swamp sometime. We'll get 'em again.
The Oryx break. We should not linger here. They may regain their resolve.
The battle is ours. Praise Sigma.
And there we go, we won. We chased off the wizard. Jobs are good. Now we're going to go to level 2.
I do not recognize these markings. They are old. Old as the fall of the realms. Old and forgotten.
Sending us out to reclaim the power of an ancient city in a horrible bog. That makes about as much sense as building a city in a peace-ridden wasteland.
Perhaps this is one of the great cities of the Age of Myth. A resting place for an artifact of power. This is good. We are close.
Defensible. No orcs.
Death magic.
I see no signs of it, Aiden. But something is keeping the Oryx away.
I'm from Shaiish. I know death when I taste it.
Sigrun. A temple? One that still harbors some of its old sanctuary powers by the look of it.
That explains the lack of orcs.
They would be loath to dare this spiritual ward. A divine power, perhaps.
These sigils are newer. I recognize this script.
We need to get past it.
A power that acknowledges the supremacy of Sigmar, it seems. It is no barrier to the righteous.
This is no temple of Sigmar. This place hosts the filth of Nagash!
I'd rather die.
Die first, then join our ranks. Worthy of such power, you know not what you tried.
Okay, so here we are in the next level. I did say level 2. This is level 3. It's the second level we're playing today. So this is chapter 3. The first one was chapter 2. It is also worth mentioning that last level, the fact that the enemy were constantly stressing us and reinforcing being spat out all the time could be down to the difficulty level I was playing at. Because I was playing on hard mode on that first level. This, I put it down to normal difficulty because it's supposed to be a very difficult, very difficult level. I think to an extent that is true. This one was very, very stressful. I was very busy. So here you can see I start in the middle of the map with my troops, and I'm trying to grab. You can see there's 3 objective markers on the map that are proper objective markers. You can see they got like a little dice faces on them of 1, 2, and 3 on the mini-map. And my realm gate is up in the north, which is where my command post is going to end up. But basically, these chains are the objective, right? I get those objective markers and we're destroying these chains. Or weakening their power or something. You can see at the top.
Bindings are strong. It will take time to shatter the bindings with Azia's light.
Time we may not have. Secure the artifact.
So yeah, the voice is very quiet. Okay, the voice is very quiet. I hope they put that up a bit. Or maybe it's just the settings for the sort of remote, session that I had. They had the sound options a bit quiet for some reason. I don't know, but hopefully that'll be addressed when the game comes out. You can see at the top there is an objective sort of bar there that is depleting, and you just have to have control over any of the pedestals, and that'll start dropping. Although it seems to be dropping already, even though we don't have control over any of it. So I'm a little unsure about how that's supposed to work or how it does work. Because what I was noticing throughout playing this, for one, that bar didn't start full, but that could just be like a UI resolution silly little bug that'll get ironed out, early access, these things happen. But it seemed to be that was... Actually, it might just be wobbling. But anyway, it seems to drop when you only have one objective. You don't need to have 2 of them. So there would be often times what would happen. Well, I mean, we'll see as we play. But it would be a case of the game would sometimes kick you when you're down. Because at certain points it goes, oh, you've done X amount of objectives. Here's more enemies. And so while that keeps it very tense, kind of like the last level would just keep throwing enemies at you, this does it, periodically with objectives. But because the objectives, you only need 1 for that bar to go down. You could be in a position where you had 2 and it was going quite quickly. Then most of your army gets wiped out because you had most of your army split up. And then you lose one of the objectives and you don't have an army and you've only got the 1 objective, but the bar's still going down. So you have nothing and the game goes, ha, you think you're winning? No, I didn't actually. I never thought I was winning. So thanks for throwing more enemies at me when I've already had my army wiped out. That was cool. So we'll see that happening a lot. Keep an eye out for it, because it does seem a little bit strange how this seems to ignore tradition, precedent, whatever you want to call it, tropes of other strategy games, including this one. In multiplayer, you always have to have more objectives than the enemy for the bar to go down. And maybe that's what's happening. Maybe I'm thinking you need to have 2 out of 3, but maybe it's just going by the rules of if you have more than the enemy, then you're fine. but it feels like if they're focused on wiping you out instead of capturing points, you're still in that position where you did have 2, but then you only have 1 and no army, and it suddenly spawns a bunch. But to me, it doesn't feel like the enemy can capture the objectives at all, so maybe that's the problem. Maybe it's playing by those rules of just have more than the enemy. But for this campaign, it really feels like you should have 2 of these in order to make the bar go down. It feels very unusual, because the assumption is if you don't have ownership over them, then the enemy must have ownership of them, right? But I guess not, because they're not red. So yeah, I think maybe that's where the confusion lies. I think that's where the confusion was lying. I think I had more than the enemy, so the bar was going down, even though it only meant I had 1. But yeah, so little confusions like that, things that feel a little unintuitive for the sort of the framing, for the context of this game. Yeah, it feels a little strange. Feels a little unusual. Because they definitely seem to be in control of the enemy when you're not in control of them, because they're big, spooky, giant ghost chains, which is sort of their brand. You know, you think they're sort of in control of them by default. But anyway, so you can see, I am slowly trying to take points while keeping the enemy off the objectives as best I can. Trying to constantly juggle them, because I know they're just going to keep coming. I don't want them to get to, you know, any severe numbers, and if I can grab a point here or there, then I'll absolutely love to do that. That would be great. And if I keep this pressure on, then they're not slipping into the back line and preventing me from capturing more points, they're getting more resources. In this one, we can actually upgrade our you know, supply tent, which is good. So we can get access to better units and up our population capacity as well. And we have access to all of our upgrades, which is very, very nice. However, things like the healing one, I mean, I guess it's good for balance that you can't build these on objectives, but the fact that you can't build those on objectives, and it's such a big fight to hold any of those objectives against these ghosts. I mean, it doesn't seem too bad at the moment, but it gets pretty severe. They get very, very aggressive as it goes on. It would almost be nice to be able to build some kind of defensive structures or some healing structures or something that can sort of help you dig in a little bit more. Because I think that is what's missing from this game. And I think that's why most people sort of like just to have a very blanket stance on strategy games, going, no, we have to be able to build things or it's not an RTS. I don't think you need to be able to build things. I think you need to be able to dig in. I think you need to be able to do something in order to solidify your progress. I think that's the big thing that that's sort of like the big benefit of building stuff, and without having to be able to secure that progress as well. Yeah, I think that's what is missing from people, you know, from sort of how people feel about this sort of thing. So something to help sort of dig in would be cool, you know, over an objective, even if it's something very simple, like objectives gave you a defensive bonus, so it was easier to hold it than it is to take it. I think would be great, you know, because especially on campaign, you're having to take objectives. You know, all the objectives can just be in control, you know, in the control of the enemy from the beginning. There's no reason they shouldn't be. So it's always an uphill battle to try and take those things, and then holding it a bit more easily sounds good. But of course, because it's a story, you know, they have story mechanisms in there. It can just go, oh, and here's something really threatening that's going to be very good at taking over. You know, that territory again, and they can throw that at you, and then you have to deal with it because, you know, they're in full control of your opposition. So I think it makes a lot of sense. So yeah, he's going to run away. So off he goes. He survived. I was trying to hold out with that guy and use his banner thing that heals, but unfortunately it wasn't on cooldown, so I had to just leg it with all those guys. And yeah, the way they just sort of poke at you with their units is very scary. So trying to get some work done over here. But you can see they are sweeping around the other side now. We are healing up some boys. We will soon upgrade our supply point, I believe. And you can see they have like a witch guy there, a Lord Gloom, who is quite sturdy. He is putting up a heck of a fight. And you can see we are getting healed. You don't have to pay for that, but it is quite slow. I think it would be nice, again, if they split the difference. Last time, in the last build, you had to spend resources to get that healing aura. Oh, yeah, here we go, another cutscene.
countering my efforts. They have a sorcerer.
Break the bindings.
So loads of enemies
We'll
spawn.
deal with it.
And, I mean, at this point, I do actually have control over both points. I do actually have control over both. So, technically, I was winning, so it makes sense that they'd suddenly go, and here's the enemy. Right, you better run, dude. Oh, shot in the back. Grim. But again, when cutscenes are happening, you can't control your guys. So all of those units down the bottom that I would have loved to have retreated, I couldn't, because everything keeps fighting. All they have to do in a cutscene is just make every unit on the map invincible while the cutscene is going. Just have it so they don't take any damage.
There's our quarry.
And that would be fine. You get some annoying situations where like you spent money on an ability, and then everything went invincible, and then the ability didn't do anything. But yeah, just make it so nothing does any damage. You know, or at least no auto attacks do damage. How about that? But that is something that I think change, because the emphasis on retreating in order to spare your resources and regroup and everything, and then suddenly for the game to go, oh yeah, you can't control the game now though, is unfortunate. So I hope that they change that. That would be a very simple change to ease frustration.
What is thy will?
But yeah, so everyone's getting healed up. We do have towers getting attacked, but I made that one an attacking tower, so that is going to fight back, which is pretty handy.
We have found a foe.
So as long as they're only going to send in a unit at a time, we might be able to keep that just under its own strength, which is pretty good. Except they are sending a bit more to come and get us, but they're taking damage. They are taking damage.
Our hammers do
And they are trying to take basically every point at once, which I think actually is a bit iffy, but I think benefits us too, to an extent. You know, pressure's on in a bunch of places. Well, they're spreading out too, you know. And if we move in force, then we can take out a bunch of them all at once. So it's kind of easier to juggle when it's one at a time. But they do have all three of the big objectives now. Although, strangely, if you look in the top right, it says chain pedestals controlled 1 out of 3. But if you look at the map, everything is red. So I think maybe that could also be the problem, where it seemed that every time I was on the back foot, it would go, ha, you think you're winning? Here's 1,000,000 guys. And that was odd. So maybe that's the problem? I don't know. The fact that I'm having to constantly second guess what was causing the enemy just to, like, go, ha-ha, every 5 minutes. The fact I don't know what that is means that I think that they need to do something to, like, up the readability of this game, to sort of communicate what is triggering the things that are happening. Because I shouldn't be this puzzled, I don't think. I don't think this would be that confusing. So they have some Guardians of Souls coming in now, so that's a new side objective to try and defeat him.
Sorcery inhibits my arcane power. Stop the Guardian of Souls.
So yeah, that guy seems to be. You can actually see the objective in the top, the little objective
Our foes are here.
bar, you know, the little loading bar for objectives. What do you want to call that? The progress bar, I guess is the one. That actually went up a bunch. He did some ritual at the chain and it strengthened it, which I think is kind of cool. So that's a thing that happens. Oh, we also have these prosecutors now that seem very powerful. But yeah, they take a bit of micro. They take a bit of micro because they're flying by default, so they won't automatically just run in and attack stuff. So you have to tell them to land to get them involved. But then they can only use their abilities when in the air. And their ability is really, really good, but it's got a bit of a cooldown, so you don't want them doing nothing, because then they just get shot at, and they're quite flimsy. They can't just sit there getting shot. So, yeah, I mismanage them a lot in this, is what I'm getting at. But yeah, they're very powerful. They're very powerful, but you really... I don't think you want to have them in a million different places. I think you want to have them together, and preferably with backup, you know? If you are going to move stuff in, move them in to do like a strike like this, right, where they run in and get a load of work done. Although there's no one stood there right now, which is very disappointing. And yeah, I think get the enemy engaged and have them come in as just like a scalpel, just to like take out anything dangerous in a big skirmish. I think having them on their own, they're too flimsy. Very, very powerful, but they're too flimsy. So I think you need them to be with other troops. Like, have other troops be doing the battle, and they come in to win it for them, you know? But yeah, as you can see, they're just getting shot to pieces. And of course, you know, they're swords, right? They're the sword icon. Ranged units are best against that sort of thing. So, you know, it makes perfect sense, but you have to bear that in mind. They aren't just, although they're the next tier, the rock, paper, scissors elements are still very important. You can't just go, well, they are like tier 2 units, so they should be better than tier 1. It's like, well, yeah, but they still have their strengths and weaknesses. Which I kind of like. There's no sense of just, oh, we just get to the better unit, then we'll win, right? There's a sense that you kind of have to put the work in, which is good. Oh, except here with the cutscene, and now everyone's going to die while I can't control it. Okay, so luckily he didn't use the Celestial Barrage, but now everyone's very hurt, and it would have been nice to have been doing that before. So I can recruit some more prosecutors, because I think they're cool. And there's also small upgrades to do, which is nice. So yeah, as you do upgrade your tiers, you do also upgrade your upgrades.
Regroup on my position. Liberators awaiting your command.
Oh, and here I believe I do have the Banner of the Reforged, so that's going to just heal everyone up, which is awesome. Though the middle of the map is still under attack, and the one on the point on the left we don't have either. I had a bit of lag there. You can see my cursor was still moving. That's not the video. That was there was a bit of lag in the game. I had put that down to connection lag at the time, but again, it's very early access. It's just a remote thing. But generally, though, it runs really well. It runs really well. I think most people will be able to play this quite happily. I can't see this being something that's going to be hard to run on any system. Which I know everyone's just like, oh no, maximum fidelity, no, maximum playability. Like seriously, I want people to be able to play the game, and it does look gorgeous. It's it's stylized. It's got a lot of good fidelity. It's very readable, which I think is very important in a game like this. It's very readable. You can very much tell what is, what your guys are, what the enemies are. Though there is some degree of once you actually get into a fight, everything is gold, so it can be a little bit hard to tell people apart. But thanks to the fact that you just select everybody and tab through them, or you can select everyone and then click on their specific icon down the bottom if you don't want to cycle through everything. But it means you can access everybody's abilities really well, and if you need to retreat someone, you can tab through and retreat them. You don't necessarily need to be able to see who is who on the actual battle, because you have ways to sort through them. So I think that's really good. I think they've done a great job for that sort of UI and everything. And also, it means that this is all very approachable for people using a controller. This does have controller support, which I still haven't tried. I still haven't tried out. Just because, I'm a traditional sort of RTS player, I don't want to play on controller. I just don't. But I can see all of the things that they've done that actually make it more comfortable to play on mouse and keyboard also will help people on controllers a lot, which I think is great. I think that's something that's very, very easy to overlook, that creating a easier system for like a different control scheme just means making the game easier to control across the board, and I think that's really nice. You can be, you can sort of react fairly quickly to things. So I like it. I like it a lot. I like how they've done it. I enjoy the control system, especially now that retreat and charge aren't the same button. That was a lot. Master point is under attack, which is very frightening. And you'll notice this happened when we had control over nothing. So is that like a time thing, or was that progress on the progress bar? Because it does look like the bar is still going down, which doesn't make a lot of sense, that that's still going down. Unless it goes down every time you kill an enemy? Is that something? But if that's the case, what's the point of capturing anything? So, I don't know. It's very unclear what is actually giving you any progress on this, or if things are indeed triggered by that progress. I have no idea. So some indication of the readability, or whatever, just something to decipher what is going on would be good. I would appreciate that very much. Because I was definitely a bit baffled when we were playing this. I mean, I was enjoying the hell out of it, but I was very confused a lot of the time. And I thought, looking back at the footage now, that it would make more sense. But I actually just have further questions now. I thought I had it deciphered. I thought it was literally just, it was, you know, progress being made when you had control of one node. It seems to be all kinds of things. So, yeah, some clarity there would be very good.
The enemy are revealed.
Yeah, some clarity. Any amount would be great. Sorry, I'm still just puzzled. Completely puzzled over it. So here, sadly, I ran my what are those angels called again? Anyway, the flying dudes. I ran them into combat because when they're on foot, it's hard to recognize them as those guys. So I know I was talking about readability before, but you do still have to be mindful, given the fact that it's the icons show you the rock paper scissors, not the specific type of unit they are. You know, so it'll say what sort of class they are, but not what tier or anything. So again, I think some clarity there would also be quite nice. Just so if you have an entire clump like this, you can tell if one of them is charging right in. And I know you can look at the units at the bottom, but when you're actually clicking on enemies and things, you're looking at the map, right? You are still looking at the map, so it'd be nice if it was sort of there, was that information, so you can see at a glance. Prosecutors, that's the one. I was thinking Retributors, but that's a different unit. And I'm going to use that barrage, which is really good. I really love that ability. But it seems everything's dead where they're hitting again. So they can kind of waste their time doing that. But my god, it's a powerful ability. But again, it reinforces that idea that you want your army to run in, get the enemy locked down, and then you hit them with the lightning. Also here, very frustrating, the fact that you have to maneuver your ranged unit. So I sent them both up there to attack that guy, but I clearly just told them to move next to the enemy, and so our archers just ran up, deployed, facing past them, and just ignored the battle entirely. So an attack move order would have been great there, because then it would just be, oh, attack the thing in that direction. The first thing you see as you're running, that's your target, and they would have just deployed and started shooting. So finding out what the button for attack move is would be great. I would definitely appreciate that. Because, yeah, that's not fit for purpose when you have archers that literally can't turn on a dime. You know, they have to be deployed properly. They have to see an enemy and point at it. Or you can just hold right-click and move the cursor in the direction you'll deploy them, and then let go of right-click and they'll deploy in that direction. But you can't always do that when the enemy's on the move, and you just want your guys to run in that direction and deal with them. So yeah, I pulled that guy out of combat for a second. So that way he could get his ability on cooldown, because I want to get that. I didn't want him to keep getting shot at, and he's hopefully going to heal everybody. And you can see I'm about to complete the level. And this was great, actually. This is a very good feeling. This is a really good feeling at this point, because I did have both objectives captured there, and it felt like I was winning. It felt like I dealt a huge blow to the enemy before I got the win.
On your feet. Stay close.
I have this. Go!
Cease your lies, filth of Nagash.
Secure the ruins! Destroy any foes that remain!
We have it.
What about the Nighthorn's words? That was a warning, not a threat.
Lies. That's all that ever dribbles from the mouths of Nagash's dregs.
Maybe so. Maybe not. Is it safe?
All magic is dangerous to those unable to control it. I'm not entirely sure what it is. But it is the power source I demand.
I need more guarantees than that.
Well, I mean, we've fought all the way here. This thing's clearly powerful. Even I can feel it. Why don't we just take it?
Sigrun is right. It is wise to exercise caution. There is a ritual that will let me probe the artifact's past, learn more about it. But it takes much effort. It is dangerous to the mind. I had hoped to conduct it within the safety of our cannabis.
How long will it take?
Minutes. Or hours. I cannot say. The magics are fickle. But once I begin, to prematurely end the spell could trap my mind forever in the past.
We have to be sure before we bring it into the heart of the city.
Keep me safe.
Stormcast! Guard formations!
Toru Aziras Temporis Acta. Theodorus Optica Azira Temporis Arcanus Acta. Toru Aziras Temporis Acta. Theodorus Optica Azira Temporis Arcanus Acta.
So that's been the demo. I've just gone back to the first level again while I'm giving my closing statements. But basically, I think this game is moving in a really good direction, and the fact that they've completely rechanged control systems and a bunch of other things just from the previous hands-on, they've clearly taken note of a lot of feedback, and they are tweaking things a lot due to, like, you know, people's reaction to it, which I think is amazing. It shows a lot of promise, and I think it's just getting better. I think it's getting better as it goes. I think they've done a really good job in identifying slight trouble spots and switching around. Simple things like not having to spend money to heal your troops anymore. It means that you can spend more of your resources on trying to make sure that your troops win a fight so they don't need to retreat in the first place. So it gives more emphasis on the fight rather than trying to keep your guys alive by healing them, which is, let's be honest, that's boring. You want to defeat the enemy, because then you can go and take more objectives and do stuff. You don't want to spend all your time just bringing your guys back to heal them to send them out again. That's kind of boring. So the fact that that's a more automatic system is good, and the fact that it does take a while, you are going to end up with that choice of maybe I just let them die because I can recruit another, and that would be quicker, and maybe I could get something of a better tier. So stuff like that I think is really good. They've tweaked it in a way that I think is just a benefit across the board. I think it keeps the emphasis on the parts of the game that need emphasis, which is great. So I think they're making a lot of good progress on this game, though there are some frustrations. The way it communicates things could be worked on better. Like the objectives on the previous map were a mystery to me. I have no idea what was going on there. I won in the end. It was very hard fought, and it worked out, I guess, but it didn't feel like I was in control or had any agency over what was happening, besides just sort of fight and hope the objectives don't object. It was odd. So some better communication on things I think would be good. Unit banners, giving a slightly better idea of what the units are. They could literally just have the banners at top different colours to show the different tiers, and that would help differentiate between basically every unit in the game from the beginning. To be like, oh, I know that this unit has a gold banner instead of a bronze one or a silver one, right? So you would just know which unit it was that was running into combat. Even if they all had swords, you could tell them apart. So stuff like that, I think, would be very handy. But yeah, just stuff like that. I mean, now I've said that, I bet they'll change it because they seem really responsive to feedback. Provided it's not stupid. This needs more dragons. Every single character should ride a dragon. Even the orcs. Everyone should have a dragon. Okay, let's see if they do that one. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. I hope you're excited. I will definitely be playing a lot more of this game. Certainly when it comes out, I want to play through the campaign. because I've been having a blast with it. It's been really good, and I've been really looking forward to just having something that's Age of Sigmar with story, because it's not a setting I've really invested in yet. You know, I'm all Warhammer Fantasy. That's my jam. So to be introduced to something in a more sort of visceral, you know, hand-holdy way, and go, oh, let me guide you through the world of Age of Sigmar, and that feels great. It's really nice to sort of be introduced to this, you know, through a very visual medium. It's very nice. So I'm enjoying the hell out of it, and I hope you guys are too. Yeah, that's me. That's me for today. So comment, like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys.
I have this. Go!